I was amazed at how much this movie packed in. I know we talk about some movies have really long burn times. This was about an hour and a half.
It felt fast. It felt fast, but it felt in depth for me.
Hey, I'm Teresa. Welcome to Cocoon Cast, where we deep dive into movies and discuss all things cinema.
Hi, I'm Rebecca. Today we'll be discussing the new and soon-to-be-released movie, One Life, in our early review.
Rebecca, let's get started.
Nicholas Winton, in his younger years, moved by the plight of refugee children, decided to help a large number of them escape a soon-to-be war-torn Prague. But after the last disastrous crossing, he decides to close that chapter. Determined to restore the humanity of whom he sees as forgotten, Nicholas soon realizes that if he is to make a difference in the present, he must make peace with all of his past.
Rebecca, we got to see this movie early release. We were looking forward to it, even like normal later release, but it was early.
Thank you, Screen Unseen at AMC.
I think it's exciting. You excited about this?
I was interested to see this. Nicholas Winton in the wider community is often kind of snubbed for his contributions for helping children escape war-torn situations. And it was nice to see that he kind of got a spotlight.
Literally, this movie is about him, and what a humble man he was.
I bet you got some stories. That's really not about me.
It's fascinating. Doing the research for this film, we discovered that he was even nervous about his own daughter writing a biography about him.
And my understanding is he had this photo album that he held close to the vest, right? My understanding was that his wife found it much later. He didn't lead with like, hey, oh, by the way, I've saved 669 kids. Check this out. It was over time she found it, and then he explained it, and then his daughter wanted to write the book, and then he was on British television honoring him.
All the letters. But back here is the list of all the children. This is Vera Diamant, now Vera Gissing. We did find her name on his list. Vera Gissing is with us here tonight. Hello, Vera. And I should tell you that you are actually sitting next to Nicholas Winton.
It's quite a wild turn of events for a guy that literally diverted his vacation to help his friends.
Correct. He was a stockbroker. Not quite the person, but the title says it all, right? One life. One life makes a difference. This movie, as you said, the story needs to be told. I know in our family, I know for me specifically, I'm sure Cocoon Cast has heard me say it, one life matters, one life matters. That is such a huge theme for me because I think sometimes we see horrible things happening around us and we say, oh, I could never do anything about it. I'm helpless to do anything. We reviewed Kiss the Future, talking about Sarajevo, and it's clear that one life matters and one person makes a difference. And Nicholas Winton was risking his life. We're not talking he's just putting money out there. I mean, he literally is risking his life, his team trying to get these children out.
I thought it was interesting, too, because he comes in this situation and they're like, you're just a tourist. You're going to be here for a week. You're going to be gone. Immediately, he's like, no, what's the need? How can I help? And I think that's a valuable message that we can take away from this film, too.
He jumped right in. We were talking about with Cabrini, the grittiness. He jumped right in and immediately connected with these children. And not in a everything's so happy kind of a way. You know, parents were skeptical. You really felt that these Jewish children, their parents would not make it through the war. And I know it was pre-war, but they knew how bad it was, right? They were in the ghetto environment. They had been confined there and they knew it. And as a parent seeing that, it was emotional.
I think that the thing that really got me with this movie was that there's several kids that they put the focus on to give you a perspective of what life is like in this environment.
Correct.
And the directors obviously took the time to kind of create an arc for each of these kids, not just Nicholas and his family helping these kids out.
One of your favorite actresses was Nicholas's mom.
I'm a sucker for a good Helena Bonham Carter role.
She did really, really well. And Anthony Hopkins plays Nicholas Winton, and he was phenomenal. Do we expect anything else from Anthony Hopkins? Clearly, though.
I want to clarify. He plays older Nicholas Winton. We have Johnny Flynn playing younger Nicholas Winton. For a cinema community who pays attention to historical dramas and Jane Austen novels, he was in the more recent adaptation of Emma.
Oh, thank you. That's a pretty good thing.
You may also remember him from the one movie where there was the tailor. You're one of your favorite actors.
Yes.
It was the outfits, the mob tailor.
He was Stoicky.
He was Stoicky's nemesis. He was the adversary, he's the reinforcer guy.
Oh, all right. No, the younger guy.
Yeah.
Okay. I was amazed at how much this movie packed in. I know we talk about some movies have really long burn times. This was about an hour and a half.
It felt fast. But it felt in depth for me.
Yes, it felt complete to me. The acting was good. The screenplay, my understanding, the screenplay was actually based on a book by Nicholas Winton's daughter, Barbara.
That would be the biography that I mentioned earlier.
My understanding was she was involved with the production of this movie, and she actually passed away before the movie came to the theaters.
I think it's really sweet, though. Some of her last memories are her father being honored. She must have looked up to him so much to take time to actually write a book about him.
My understanding is she was a lot like her dad, and her dad was knighted by Queen Elizabeth.
He got a OBE, didn't he?
Yes, that's something. The acting was good. What did you think about the production design?
I enjoyed it because it was very easy to tell at which point in the timeline you're at. In this movie, you're bouncing between two timelines. You're getting close to pre-World War II, then you're bouncing to several decades after World War II. So I think the production design communicated that time period jump pretty effectively. The thing I was kind of confused about there was so much open space. It felt like camera work needed to be a little bit tighter, but it just felt like you were having people far away from each other. It didn't feel
I see
like...
what you're saying. Because I think they were pretty fluid in the transition, which sometimes can be distracting or disjointing. And as you said, it was easy to tell because obviously, right, two different actors, two very different ages, but it was fluid enough that, as you were saying, it moved along pretty well, and it had a great amount of information and depth, but it didn't feel overwhelming. I think there was some room to breathe in that.
Thing that was really jarring to me, and I remember discussing this with you a couple days ago, was Anthony Hopkins and Johnny Flynn are two different heights in real life. There's only an inch separating them, according to some perfunctory Google research that I did. But there's a couple scenes in the movie where Anthony feels significantly shorter than Johnny.
That is true. Actually, that's a good point.
It was so weird to me because the height difference felt so astronomical.
That's funny. The cinematography, what did you think about that?
I thought it was pretty neat. There's a couple ways that they kind of swivel into a close-up. I thought that were really beautifully done.
I agree. It was a beautiful film, despite the heaviness. There was a lot of detail that I appreciated. It just didn't feel... It felt like a simple film, and I think some movies suffer from just too many notes. We laugh about the Amadeus piece with Mozart.
Your work is ingenious. It's quality work. And there are simply too many notes. That's all. Just cut a few, and it'll be perfect.
Which few did you have in mind, Majesty?
I don't think this movie suffered from that. It felt stripped down to the conversations, the priority, and really the priority was Nicholas Winton's story, but also the children. And to me, it wasn't all about Nicholas Winton, although obviously he's the survivor, he's talking. But at the end, there was an epilogue. But there's so much more that this movie did not cover, which I felt was unfortunate because I do think that would have enriched the movie.
It's really tough because there's a couple characters that kind of tease you with their exploits, and you get a scene or two with them, and then that's it.
Do we have any questions from the box?
As you mentioned earlier, this movie does time shifting between the two different periods. What do you think about how the director handled that?
James Hawes is an interesting director. A large part of his filmography is shows on the BBC that are more genre focused. I know for a lot of our cinema community who's in the sci-fi space, you may recognize the name for some of the earlier episodes of the revival of Doctor Who, specifically The Empty Child, aka the Gas Mask Kid one. I think it's interesting to see how Hawes was able to create a complete narrative in both halves of the movie. You could easily split this up into two movies.
That's a good point. I'm just laughing. The little TARDIS, the phone booth. He's a master at moving timelines and shifting. I'm thinking, what a great guy for this movie. Do we have any other questions from the box?
Anthony Hopkins is known for his acting. A lot of people are his fan. Did he really deliver in this movie?
If you're asking if he phoned it in, I don't think he phoned it in. There's another role that he did a few years ago that felt like he did phone it in. I think he really took his time, especially considering that he knew he was the family's basically the only choice to play Nikki. He actually asked for permission to play Nikki. I think that tells me something in terms of he's taking this role seriously, but he also wants to understand that there's a complete figure behind the role that he's playing.
I appreciate that. I think that says something about his professionalism and his humility. Because oftentimes if you're cast or if you're the director's first choice, you can just go with that and say, I'm first choice. Hey, check me out. But to be respectful of his family and others, to say, do you think I would be the best fit for this? Are you comfortable with me portraying a real person? Because this isn't just random person. This is someone's real life.
Especially considering that this person was alive in our present time.
I believe he was 106 when he passed.
According to my research, that is the case. And also, it was in 2015. That's still pretty recent.
That is amazing that he lived to be 106. Rebecca, it is that time of the show. I have 5 moths. What do you think? 1 to 5?
I think this is a 3-month movie for me.
All right. Number 1 reason?
It's not the best movie ever, but I think it's worth a watch.
Okay. 1 to 5, 1 to 5. I would say a bit higher than yours. I would give it a 4. I think this is a movie that everyone should see. Obviously the subject matter, but it's not the subject matter trumps the quality of the movie. It's a quality movie. I think if you're a parent, it hits a different note. It's not that you have to be a parent to enjoy it or anything of that nature, but I think if you're a parent, you think, who would take care of my kids if I couldn't? If I were destined to die and I knew that, or I knew I couldn't take care of my children, the biggest fear you have is who would take care of my children? Would anyone care? What would have become of them? And I think that's a hard sell to start with, meaning nobody really wants to think about it. But then when you do think about it, you think, would this work?
I think the other thing you mentioned to me that you really liked about this movie was that it didn't cheapen the struggle at the expense of propping up Nikki's character.
Yes, that is true.
If you're planning on seeing One Life, please comment below. Tell us what you think when you see it.
Thanks for joining us. We're always excited to create experiences to bring our cinema community together.
Watch the notifications for our review of the new movie Arthur the King. Then come back to the channel this weekend for our weekly show, Movies and More, where we will have more movie reviews, the latest Hollywood news, and commentary of snark, meant to amuse.
Please remember to like and subscribe. It really helps us out, and to share our channel with your friends.
If you enjoyed this movie review, you might click the link to check out our review of Dune Part 2, or click the other link to watch last week's show, where we reviewed Perfect Days.
Remember, cinema community movies are better together. Thanks for watching. See you in the next review.